Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into complex sources and extract the high-octane insights you need.
Today, we're looking at something I don't think anyone was expecting.
Definitely not. We're analyzing a really stark, urgent economic warning. And it's not coming from an economist, not from a think tank.
It's coming from Tony Robbins.
Exactly. And that just forces you to stop and pay attention, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, for decades, his entire brand has been about personal growth through mindset. The core idea that you change your life by changing your state, by changing your story.
All about the inner game.
Completely.
Yeah.
But what we're dissecting today is this dramatic pivot. He's moving past the purely psychological and is issuing this really demanding immediate call for external strategy, for retooling your skills.
So we're past the theoretical phase. This isn't some sci-fi future.
No, this is about immediate systemic societal disruption. He's sounding the alarm.
And that pivot, that's really the core of our deep dive for you today. When the world's biggest champion of inner mastery starts saying, look, positive thinking is not enough, you need to retool, we have to ask a serious question.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Is this a validation that internal motivation, as powerful as it is, just can't stand up to the sheer force of this kind of technological automation?
That's the question we're going to trace. We'll look at the alarm he sounded and then get into the prescription he's offering.
Okay, so let's start with the scope of this thing. He frames the warning in a very specific way.
He does. And the first most important point he makes is that this isn't just about AI. That's too narrow. It's about the rapid acceleration across a whole suite of technologies.
AI, nanotechnology, quantum computing.
All of it. And the convergence of these things is what's going to create, in his words, immense financial and emotional suffering through massive job displacement. The key word is speed.
Society just hasn't grasped the speed.
Not at all. And to understand that, he uses a fantastic historical contrast. He looks back at farming.
Right. At its peak, farming was something like 80% of all jobs.
80%. And that number dropped to 3% over about 150 years.
150 years? I mean, think about that. That's multiple generations to adapt, to re-educate, to build a whole new industrial framework.
There's a slow transition. This is not a slow transition. We have none of that luxury.
It's happening everywhere all at once.
And he says the writing was on the wall a decade ago. He recounts a conversation with President Obama where the warning was already clear.
That technology was going to displace more jobs than the 8 million lost in the 2008 recession.
Far more. And that wave is now cresting.
Let's make this concrete, though, because these big numbers can feel abstract. He uses the truck driving sector as this perfect microcosm of the problem.
It's a terrifyingly clear example. In the U.S. alone, we're talking about 8 million professional drivers.
That's trucks, taxis, Uber drivers.
The whole sector. And they all face displacement because the economic logic is it's overwhelming.
It's pure business calculation.
Absolutely. Why would a company employ a human who needs healthcare, who gets sick, who can only drive 10 hours a day?
When you can buy an autonomous truck that drives 24/7.
Exactly. It's a depreciable asset. The insurance is cheaper because it doesn't make mistakes, it doesn't get tired, and it certainly never complains.
So once the regulations are sorted out, that transition isn't 150 years, it's what, 5?
Less than 5.
Yeah.
And that shift alone, losing 8 million jobs in one sector, would completely shatter the social contract.
And this time compression, it just gets tighter when you look at the projections for AGI, for artificial general intelligence.
Right. AI that can do any intellectual task a human can. He points to Ray Kurzweil, who has a pretty solid track record for predictions.
And Kurzweil's long-held prediction is AGI by 2029.
2029. And even the more conservative figures, like Jeffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of deep learning, he projects AGI between 2030 and 2040.
So we're talking within the next 10 to 15 years.
When you combine that with the economic pressure to replace drivers, customer service agents, even financial analysts, you just realize the window for any kind of leisurely retooling has slammed shut.
This brings up a really critical part of his analysis, which is the social cost. This is never just about money.
It's so much deeper. For millions and millions of people, their job is their primary source of meaning.
It's their identity, their dignity.
And when you have a sudden loss of agency on that kind of mass scale, you get immense social stress.
And history gives us a pretty dark warning here.
A very dark warning. He brings up the Luddites in the 1800s. We kind of romanticize them, but they weren't just anti-machine. They were violently reacting to the sudden destruction of their livelihoods.
They were smashing the machines, the looms and frames.
And the government's response was swift and brutal.
To protect the capital, to protect economic growth, they passed laws making it a capital offense to destroy a machine.
They were hanging people for breaking machines. The message was crystal clear. Economic progress comes first, worker stability comes a distant second.
And that pattern repeated itself just 15 years later with the threshers, right?
Yeah, the swing riots. Farm laborers destroying the automated wheat threshing machines that were taking away their seasonal work. It's the same tension. How fast can our human institutions, government, education adapt to the speed of technology?
And the answer back then was not fast enough, which led to violence.
Violence and government overreach.
So today, he frames the problem a bit differently. He calls it the leverage problem, driven by a massive carrot and an inescapable stick.
The stick is the fear. The constant argument you hear is, well, if we don't do it, China's going to do it.
Right, so we have to rush development, even if it's unsafe.
And whether that's true or not, the incentive is just too big to ignore.
The carrot being $1 trillion.
$1 trillion for whoever fields the first true AGI or the most powerful large language model. That combination of existential fear and unimaginable profit just pushes all focus away from safety, ethics, or societal impact.
The speed of technology is just winning the argument against human welfare.
It is. Which brings us to the next point, because for a long time, the assumption was that this only affects, blue-collar jobs.
Manual labor on a factory floor.
Exactly. But he argues this transition is unique in all of human history because it disrupts both the muscles and the mind.
And that's the critical difference, isn't it?
It's everything. AI isn't just taking over repetitive physical tasks, it's taking over repetitive cognitive tasks. And that's a huge slice of white-collar work.
We're already seeing it. He brings up Mark Benioff at Salesforce.
A huge layoff of customer service agents. Functions that are now handled with, vastly more efficiency and lower cost by AI systems.
And it doesn't stop at customer support. He talks about finance, private equity.
Yeah, these super high-paying industries. People making $5-10 million a year, and their staffs are shrinking.
Because quantum and AI can analyze data, model markets, and execute trades faster and more accurately than any human team.
It affects every single economic strata. And you can't overstate the psychological shock when that displacement hits the traditionally secure, highly paid class.
What makes it all happen so fast, though? He has this analogy about learning that I think is just, it's perfect.
The omelet analogy, it's brilliant. If one human chef learns to make the perfect omelet, that knowledge has to be transferred to the next person through time, through language, through repetition.
It's slow. It's linear.
But if one robot learns how to make that perfect omelet,
every single robot on the network learns it instantly.
Instantaneously. There's no transfer time. The knowledge is immediate and exponential.
So once AI cracks the code on high-level legal analysis or medical diagnosis,
that capability scales globally in hours, not decades. That's why he says we're out of time.
Okay, so let's circle back to the central tension we started with, the big pivot. What does it mean when the world's most successful mindset coach, a man who built an empire on belief is power, suddenly shifts focus to external skill acquisition?
I mean, it feels like a confession, doesn't it?
It does. A confession that the entire self-help movement has finally hit a wall it can't just think its way through.
It's a recognition that pure motivation and positive thinking, while they're vital for personal happiness, are fundamentally inadequate to navigate this kind of systemic technological shift.
So if the master of the inner game is telling you to focus on the outer game,
you're being given a new economic mandate. And he makes it explicit. He says retooling is the answer.
And that retooling has to address both sides of the problem.
Exactly. Not just the jobs, the external requirement, but also the psychology of the displaced worker who's suffering this profound loss of identity.
So what's the new survival strategy he lays out?
It's a brilliant reframe. He flips the focus from victimhood to agency. It's not that AI is going to replace humans.
He says most people will be replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI.
And that distinction is everything. It changes the entire conversation.
It moves from how do I compete with the AI to how do I pilot the AI.
You can't just be an operator anymore. You have to be a designer, a creator, a synthesizer.
And that requires a deep internal shift in how we think about our purpose.
Right. He argues we need to stop managing our lives, which is just maintaining circumstances and leads to stress, and start designing and creating a life.
Because fulfillment comes from creation.
And if your job is just about maintenance, you are structurally vulnerable to being automated.
Okay, so if rapid learning is the key to surviving this time compression, what skills do we need? He identifies 3 very specific, high-value skills.
Yes, and they're all about navigating complexity, not trying to avoid it. The first one is pattern recognition.
The ability to see that today's challenges, political division, economic volatility, are not unique catastrophes.
They're historical cycles. They repeat. And when you recognize a pattern, like the season's changing, you're no longer paralyzed by fear. You gain power because you can anticipate what's coming next.
This is what the Luddites lacked. If they had recognized the bigger economic pattern, maybe their strategy would have been retooling instead of rioting.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, this means immersing yourself in history, in philosophy, in economics.
The second skill flows from that. It's pattern utilization.
Because it's useless to see a pattern if you don't act on it. This is about having the courage to jump on an opportunity before it's obvious to everyone else.
The great investor doesn't wait for total certainty.
By the time it's certain, the upside is gone. This is about understanding asymmetrical risk.
Risking a little for a potentially massive gain.
So if you recognize the pattern of AI commoditizing creative work, utilization means you start mastering the most advanced, even buggy new AI design tools right now to build that early expertise.
And the third, the ultimate skill.
Pattern creation. This is where you move beyond just reacting to cycles. You synthesize patterns from different fields to create something totally new.
You become the Joe in your field.
You create something that AI can't yet automate because it requires that kind of multidisciplinary synthesis. Your value doesn't just increase, it multiplies.
So how does the listener practically do this in a world that is basically designed for distraction?
He talks about micro-learning. Disciplined time blocking. Give up just 15 minutes of mindless scrolling a day.
And commit that time to deep subjects, philosophy, history, advanced AI tools.
And the learning has to be strategic. He emphasizes immersion and spaced repetition. Don't just skim an article. Dive deep for a short, intense period every day and then revisit it.
You're training your brain not just to remember facts, but to synthesize new patterns, to get ahead of the curve.
And stay ahead of it.
So what is the big takeaway here? What do we leave our listener with from this really unexpected source?
I think the profound shift is just that. The world's biggest champion of interchange is now saying we face a system-level crisis that demands external, rapid skill acquisition.
Retooling is the new mandate for survival.
And the reason is the sheer time compression of this transition.
Yeah.
The luxury of slow generational adjustment is it's gone.
And if you connect this back to his larger work on human needs.
Right, he talks about the 6 core human needs. And the 2 spiritual needs, growth and contribution, are the only ones that AI can't easily satisfy for you online.
They inherently resist automation.
And if you rely on your job for significance, for certainty, for connection, you are making yourself incredibly vulnerable. The only way to navigate this is to shift your source of meaning to growth and to giving back.
That's powerful. The ultimate test then for all of us in this decade is whether we can transform this technology, which right now is being driven by that carrot and stick of profit and fear, into a tool for genuine human creation.
That's the choice. It's a mandatory choice for you, the listener. Will you use this acceleration to keep just making a living, just maintaining your circumstances?
Or will you use it to finally start designing a life built on profound personal growth and contribution to the world? That seems to be the required mindset shift for survival.